You think the story of Italy begins with Rome, with legions, with emperors, with the Colosseum. But what you don't know is that the story is wrong. Before a single Roman soldier ever marched, before a single Latin word was spoken, this land was alive with peoples so ancient, so fierce, so culturally rich, that even the Romans feared them. And here's the question nobody asks. Were the Romans even Italian at all, or were they something else entirely? I understand you might be confused right now, but in few minutes you will understand much more better. Now let go deep in. The Italian peninsula is one of the most geographically dramatic places on Earth, a boot-shaped blade of land stabbing into the Mediterranean Sea, ringed by mountains, soaked in sun, and carved by rivers that have fed civilizations for 10,000 years. But long before Rome was a city, long before Latin was even a language, this land was a patchwork of dozens of distinct peoples, each with their own gods, their own language, their own identity. And understanding who they were changes everything you think you know about where Rome came from. It starts with the farmers, around 7,000 years ago. The first agricultural communities pushed into Italy from the east, crossing the Adriatic from the Balkans, settling the fertile plains, building the first permanent villages. We call their culture impressed ware, named for the pottery they pressed with shells and fingers. They were not Italian. They were not Roman. They were Proto-Europeans, the first wave. Then came the Indo-Europeans, around 2500 BC. Massive migrations from the Pontic stepped the grasslands north of the Black Sea, swept across Europe like a tide. They brought horses, bronze weapons, and a family of languages that would eventually become Latin, Greek, Sanskrit, and English. These were the ancestors of the Italic peoples, the ones who would one day call themselves Latins, Oscans, Umbrians, and Samnites. But that day was still centuries away. But no people shaped pre-Roman Italy more than the Etruscans. Emerging around 800 BC in modern-day Tuscany, the very name Tuscany comes from them. And the Etruscans were extraordinary. They built walled cities when Romans were still living in mud huts. They mined copper and iron. They traded with Greece and Carthage. Their women attended banquets alongside men, a shocking practice even in the ancient world. And they buried their dead in painted underground tombs filled with feasts, dancers, and athletes frozen in vivid color. Here is the twist that changes everything. The early Roman kings, the very men who built the city of Rome, were Etruscan. Tarquinius Priscus, Servius Tullius, Tarquinius Superbus. Etruscan names, Etruscan blood, Etruscan traditions. The Romans expelled their last Etruscan king in 509 BC, but they kept his roads, his engineering, his gods, his alphabet. Rome was, in its infancy, an Etruscan city. While the Etruscans dominated the north, the rest of Italy was teeming with warriors. The Samnites, mountain fighters from the Apennines, inflicted some of the most humiliating defeats Rome ever suffered. At the Battle of the Caudine Forks in 321 BC, they trapped an entire Roman army in a mountain pass and forced them to walk under a yoke of spears in submission. The Oscans, cousins of the Samnites, gave the world a language that competed with Latin for centuries. Their inscriptions have been found carved in stone across southern Italy. The Umbrians controlled the highlands of central Italy. The Picens lived along the Adriatic coast. The Messapians in the deep south may have migrated from Illyria, from what is now the Balkans. Italy before Rome was not empty. It was a continent in miniature, hundreds of cities, dozens of languages, 1,000 rivalries. And then there were the Greeks. Beginning around 750 BC, Greek colonists from city-states across the Aegean sailed west and planted cities along the southern coasts of Italy and Sicily. They called it Magna Graecia, Greater Greece. These were not colonies in the modern sense. They were full cities, democracies, philosophical centers. Croton, Sybaris, Tarentum, Neapolis, modern Naples were all Greek cities before they were Roman. Pythagoras, yes. The mathematician founded his philosophical school not in Athens, but in Croton, on the toe of the Italian boot. So when Rome finally conquered southern Italy, they conquered a world of Greek temples, Greek art, and Greek ideas. And the Romans were fascinated. The great Roman poet Horace famously wrote that captive Greece captured her wild conqueror. Rome conquered Greece with armies. Greece conquered Rome with culture. So were the Romans Greek? Or were they Italian? Modern genetics gives us an extraordinary answer. Ancient DNA from burial sites across Italy shows that the founding population of Rome was a mixture of early European farmers, steppe ancestry from the Indo-European migrations, and significant Eastern Mediterranean and Anatolian ancestry, the same genetic profile shared by Greeks, Levantines, and Anatolians. By the height of the empire, the 1st and 2nd centuries AD, the genetic diversity of Rome had exploded. Slaves, soldiers, merchants, and settlers from Egypt, Syria, North Africa, the Balkans, and Anatolia had flooded into the city. Rome was not ethnically Roman. Rome was the world. The Latins, the original people of Rome, were one Italic tribe among dozens. They spoke a dialect of the Italic branch of Indo-European. They shared more DNA with their Etruscan neighbors than with modern Northern Europeans. The question, were Romans Greek or Italian, misses the whole point. The Romans were something new, a civilization that absorbed everything around it and became something the ancient world had never seen before. The people of modern Italy carry the blood of all of them. The Etruscans live on in the Tuscan hills in the jaw shape of a Florentine, in ancient words embedded in Italian dialects that Latin never fully erased. The Greeks live on in Sicily and Calabria, where Byzantine churches still stand on foundations that Pythagoras would recognize. The Samnites, the Oscans, the Umbrians, they live on in the mountain villages of the Apennines, in family names, in DNA, in stone walls built 2,000 years before Christ. Italy was never a blank slate for Rome to write on. Rome was the child of everything that came before it, the inheritor of the oldest, richest, most contested land in the Western world. The next time someone asks where Western civilization began, the answer isn't just Rome. It's everything Rome was built on. If this changed how you see ancient history, like and subscribe. The story of Rome's true origins is only getting deeper. Next video drops in 2 days. Thank you.